All right, so I was driving home today from work and I asked ChatGPT to go into therapist mode. So remember, when you're dealing with AI and you're dealing with prompts, you can tell the AI how you want it to respond. You can ask it to be an 80-year-old woman, a doctor, a prisoner of war, or a therapist. It can give you a response in any mode that you can possibly imagine. That's what makes AI so incredibly powerful. So today I switched her into therapy mode and I started telling her about my day, especially the end of the day where I was talking to an electrician because for some reason the contracting company told the electricians that I knew where everything was, which is not true at all. But I was talking to him and he started telling me about how to change a breaker. So I was standing there looking at this breaker box because I've had problems with the electricity now in my apartment since I moved in. So it's been 45 days of nothing but electrical power, and there's no power now in the northern part of my apartment because the breaker blew out. And as he was explaining to me how to do my own electrical work, I could feel like the sweat in my armpits like shooting out in bursts as every time he looked at something and it's like if you touch this right here, you're dead. And I was just like, how did you learn how to do all of this? And when he said trial and error, I was like, I'm not dealing with a man with a full deck of cards here. And I slowly backed away and I ran back to my office and I hid under my desk. Anyone who's that comfortable with being electrocuted is not someone I should probably be talking to. But as you can see, that's my world. Every day there's something that gets dropped into my lap that I have no idea why I'm there. I mean, even before I sat down at my desk, the president of my office building was like, Millennial Steam, I need you. He didn't even tell me what he needed me for. And I'm going over there, and before I even get to where I'm supposed to be, he's like, one of the corporate people is here, so you better be on your best behavior. And I was just like, oh, great. This is something that I'm well dressed for today. But of course, getting therapy from ChatGPT on how to deal with all of this weirdness is probably why I'm doing this video today. So, when I think about depression and it being an economic issue, because let's face it, if you're poor and you're living in a rundown hut like I am, with broken electricity, broken everything in what's supposed to be a brand new apartment, and you look around and you're like, am I really working this hard to live here? You're going to get depressed. And if you're like me, you don't have time to go to a real therapist who's going to blow smoke up your butt and tell you how great your life is. No. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is that do you have enough money to live? If the answer is no, chances are you're going to be suffering from depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and not have a whole lot of energy and motivation to put into your job. I mean, that's what working at all of our evil corps is. No one goes to evil corp thinking, you know what, I'm going to make it. In fact, most of us go to it realizing it's a McDonald's without the clowns, or maybe with the clowns. I don't know. Something like that. So let's get into our first introductory monologue really quick. I used to think depression was just something wrong in your head, a chemical imbalance, like they always say. But the more I looked around, the more I realized people aren't breaking down because they're weak. They're breaking down because the system is. We're exhausted, overworked, underpaid, and constantly told it's our fault for not being grateful enough. Well, I'm done pretending that this is normal because it's not. Remember what the job creators will tell you to be grateful for any job. Whether it's minimum wage, whether you're unclogging a toilet, or you're looking at a server rack and you don't know where that strange noise is coming from. It's all the same. At the end of the day, you have to be okay with being exhausted and underpaid. In fact, I spent around 20 minutes this morning. I actually had to talk to every single person today that I work with in my group. Every single person had to come to me with some sort of complaint about what's going on. And everyone wants these concrete answers. I don't have that. I don't have this equals this. That doesn't happen. And unfortunately, people want that. People want concrete answers. They want me to provide them with some sort of belief that things are going to get better. And I was talking to one of the head guys, and he was with me on a lot of different talking, a lot of points that I make on a weekly basis. And he's just like, Millennial Steam, I know what you're talking about because I had to get on the phone this morning with a woman that ordered a piece of equipment. And then once she received it, she had no idea how it works. And she specifically asked for this piece of equipment and then called asking for help. Basically, hold my hand while you teach me how to use something that I asked for. And he just kind of like, I could just feel it over the phone that there was a sense of, I'm done with this. And we both worked in the same industry for most of our lives. And even us, the hardened people, the veterans of the technology world, we get to a point where the end users break us, where their sheer ignorance, technological ignorance, reaches a point in which you just start to give up. And as we talked longer and longer, I realized that this conversation was going nowhere. We both knew that when the phone call ended, we were going to have to go right back into the wage cage, sit down, attach that car battery to our nether regions, and find the motivation to finish out the day. That's how wonderful my day was today at Evil Corp. But I know that you at your own Evil Corp don't have it any better. Because I know. I read your comments, I talk to people, I talk to all kinds of people. In fact, we had another visit by the wonderful local police department this morning. And you always have to have these conversations with them about why you have faulty systems. Again, conversations that many of us shouldn't be part of. But with that said, let's get into talking point number one. Most people aren't broken inside. They're just exhausted from working endlessly and still falling behind. When rent takes half your paycheck and groceries cost more every week, anxiety, hopelessness are logical, not clinical. So, for some reason, reading that brought back images of seeing people, very, very old people, sitting in Congress falling asleep. Not because they're in the prime of their life, not because they are bad people, but because the people in government are old. Once you've reached that age, you're so out of touch with reality that you can't make good decisions on the part of people that need you to make good decisions. This morning I was watching the Cheeto in chief sleeping when he was in Qatar, I think. You guys are going to watch this video 2 weeks from when I recorded. So by the time you guys hear this, you guys have all seen these images of these old people sleeping in important places. And that's exactly what's happened with our job economy. These people don't know what it's like to try to survive on sub $20 an hour jobs, and groceries going through the roof in cost. The quality is crap. The the quantity is crap. Everything that groceries are in our society directly reflects the same jobs that are out there. There's nothing good. The quality is low, the quantity is low. Jobs taste like two handfuls of dirt. and there's nowhere else to turn. Because technically, you have a good job, or just ask any manager in America, any restaurant owner, any job creator. Ask them about the jobs, and they'll tell you everything's amazing. The stock market's doing great. They'll blow so much smoke up your tailpipe that it's going to start coming out of your nostrils. And you're going to wonder, it's like, is it me? Is it me that looks at the world and thinks, you know what? This sucks. Waking up and going to work sucks. Coming home and having only a couple of hours of, I don't even call it rest because I have to come home and work. I mean, I'm working right now. This is work. I had to spend the last 45 minutes working on scripts, backgrounds, art, coming up with ideas about what to say here. This is real work. It's not something that just gets done. I don't snap my fingers and create this content. I've made thousands of videos on the same subject. Life sucks. And it's not getting any better because we've come to accept the scraps. And as one comment said today, the reason things are this way is because more and more of us have given up on trying to get more out of life. No one's fighting for a living wage or a comfortable life or less work. The corporations every single day find a work to extract more blood from the turnip. And believe me, I don't have anything left. They could squeeze me and they could come out of my rear end, but they're not going to get any more. There's only so much you can get out of people that are exhausted and weak and mentally ill. That's the number one thing. If anything you take from this video, we are all mentally ill from the way we've been treated by Evil Corp. We acknowledge the fact that one job won't pay your bills anymore. We acknowledge that two jobs may not be enough to pay your bills anymore. You're looking at working at least 80 plus hours a week just to survive. None of us in the wage cage are ever going to thrive working these hourly jobs. As I've said before, hourly work is the work of the devil. We don't get ahead because happy workers don't work in toxic, miserable environments. You can't get a person who's high on life to work in a job where you're treated like crap every single day. You know you're disposable because you see it every single day you show up at Evil Corp. There's someone missing. It's like when I worked at Insight. I only worked there for 6 months, but every single day someone didn't come back. And it wasn't because of the great pay or the delicious food in the cafeteria. It was just because work sucks. And it's designed to suck. It's like the same way that when you poop, you know that it's going to stink, have the consistency of something you'd never put in your mouth, something you don't really want to look at, but you acknowledge came out of your rear end. That's what work is. In a world in which work is designed to break people. In fact, I had that conversation this morning with a coworker. It's like if you want to make someone go crazy, put them into solitary confinement or make them sit in a room answering questions from people that have no idea what they're doing. In fact, he was detailing a back and forth conversation he was having with an end user this morning. It's like the end user called him and she says to him, "Fix this." And he's like, "Well, you need to provide me more information." She's like, "I don't know. You went to school to learn about technology. I didn't. Fix it." And beyond that, she wouldn't say what was wrong, why she was calling, other than being very aggressive towards him. And I'm like, how are you supposed to work under those conditions? They make you go crazy. In fact, I mentioned to him that in technology, you can develop post traumatic stress syndrome just from getting so many calls from people like that. They don't want to help you, they don't care about your job. They just want you to fix it. I had that conversation last week. I'm not, my job isn't to do that particular job. But this lady called me, pretty important person, and she says, "Well, you work in the technology group. You should know how to fix everything." And I'm like, "Excuse me?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's why I called." And I'm like, You called the wrong number, lady." That's the conversation. The worst part is she's a really, really sweet person. But even the sweetest person, once their technology fails, that's when the claws come out. That's when the green eyes come out. And it reminds me of a quote from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, in which Quark is talking about the human race in general. And he's saying to his nephew, Nog, human beings are great. They're really, really nice until they don't have the things that make their lives comfortable. Once they become uncomfortable, the veil of kindness is gone, and all you get is the vicious animal. It's not verbatim, but that was the gist of what he was telling his nephew. And it's so true. As long as the end users don't need anything from you, they're capable of just sitting there doing the mindless, repetitive tasks that they're being paid to do, they're fine. Once they're not fine, they're vicious, they're angry, and they're unsympathetic to your situation. In fact, I had this happen to me years ago. I was working in the corporate office for Allied Waste, and one of the executives from the fourth floor called me, and he's like, "Come up here, Millennial Stem, right now. This isn't working." And he points at a screen at an Excel spreadsheet. It's like, "This isn't doing what it's supposed to do." And he's like, "Fix it." And I'm like, "I don't know how to fix it. Using Excel is not um is not what I do. I don't do spreadsheets. I'm not a finance person. I am a person that does computer repair. That's what I do." And he started belittling me right then and there for the exact same reasons I just said. "Well, you went to school to learn about technology. You should know how to do this." And I just looked at him and I said, "You not knowing how to do your job doesn't mean that I have to provide you training for you to do your job." And let's put it this way, I had to have a conversation with the head of my department because I wasn't tactful enough. I was just like, "I'm not a trainer. I'm not a corporate trainer. I don't know anything about Excel spreadsheets other than you put things in the little squares. If you're having problems with your equations inside of your Excel spreadsheet, you either need to ask your boss or ask Google." But yet they expect us in every circumstance to have an answer. All right, talking point number 2. I think this is going to be a super long video, by the way. We're told to take walks, go to therapy, or do yoga. But all those things cost time, money, or access. You can't afford self care when you're one paycheck away from disaster. That's not depression, that's economic suffocation. Whoa. Those aren't the words I would have chosen, but thanks, ChatGPT. Economic suffocation. We get this all the time. Every company I've ever worked at. Feeling down? Watch more cat videos. How about this recipe? Why don't you light a candle? Why don't you get a massage? Try a yoga class. Go for a walk. Decompress. While at the same time, you're looking at your inbox and you're wondering, it's like, decompress? Look at this mess. I mean, this morning I walked into work, I looked at my inbox and I'm like, these are like 10 different jobs. And I just looked at it and I'm going down the amount of different tasks that I have to do. And it's unbelievable. But it's not just me. People are being asked to do more. Doing one job used to be enough. When I was growing up, and my parents did one job. My mom cleaned houses. She wasn't being asked to come over to a very wealthy person's mansion to clean their house while simultaneously doing electrical work, balancing their checkbook, and also cleaning their pool. But in today's society, we are. You're finding solutions to a vast amount of different things because everyone is expected to do everything. Case in point, when I worked at Walmart, on any given day, I could be cleaning the bathrooms, assembling bikes, giving advice, or cleaning the floors of the sales area, or working the money center. I mean, the amount of free labor that these corporations want is incredible. I was also the technology expert for the store because people had technology questions. They would call me back to electronics all the time. And it's like, well, this person wants this, this, and this. And I'm just like, I'm getting paid minimum wage. How is it my responsibility to be an expert in technology, bike repair, and any damn question that any customer asks? I mean, I even would have customers who would come up to me and ask me for medical advice. And my number one answer for medical related questions while working in retail is like, do you really want someone wearing this uniform to give you the advice that you should go to the hospital because we have nothing here that's going to fix the gash on your head? And that's not an exaggeration because remember, these stories are all based on true stories. These aren't things that I make up. The places, the locations, the corporations, those things you have to not mention specific. But people would come up to me and ask me about how to cure their coochie. Like, I had no idea that that thing got sick until I started working in retail and someone asked me about how to fix it. All right, I'm off on a tangent. Final talking point. Society blames individuals for being sad in a world that's collapsing around them. Instead of asking, what's wrong with you? We should be asking, what's wrong with a system that forces people to choose between food and rent? There's a real question. This morning when I woke up, the first thing that YouTube recommended to me is a homeless channel that goes around the country recording people living in the worst conditions. I imagine that this channel pre-recorded what it was showing this morning, but it was showing people living in the zone. The zone is a homeless encampment in Phoenix that existed for a long time. And in the zone, they had turned it into a small homeless city with people setting up. I mean, they had tents for people who needed love. They had their own economy, a bartering system. It was a village within a major US city. And this is what people will do to survive. In fact, I knew the daughter of a professor who kept running away because she didn't like her mother. And when she ran away, she would go stay in these homeless encampments. And it was very easy for her to get whatever she needed, whether it was substances, housing, or money, by just assuming the position. She said she gave it away for less than $5 one time because she just needed money to buy food. That's impressive. Why can't we go back to that system? Because it would make a lot of us a lot more happy. You're not crazy for feeling broken. You're just living in a world that makes survival a full-time job and calls it freedom. They want you medicated, isolated, and too tired to question any of it. But the truth is, the real sickness isn't your mind. It's an economy that feeds off of your exhaustion, and it's time we stop blaming ourselves for the pain they built into this system. The pain and suffering of the proletariat is something that, in my opinion, has been monetized. Because if you know your workers are broke, you know your workers need more money, you know your workers are demoralized, humiliated, and otherwise have no idea what they're going to do. Because every person that I work with, not a single person has come up to me and said, Millennials team, I have plenty of money. I live a comfortable lifestyle. No, it's the exact opposite. Everyone you talk to, no matter where you go, what evil corp it is in America, there is not enough salary to cover life. We're not enjoying our lives. There's no leisure. There's nothing to enjoy. When I wake up in the morning and I think about what I'm going to have to do in order to survive today, it makes my stomach hurt. This morning, I had to go home and get stomach medication because the cramps in my stomach were so bad that I couldn't sit still in my office. It just wasn't possible. I was being pulled in so many different directions, asked so many different questions, and I didn't know what to do. And so, in that instance, my body reacted to the stress in the only way it knows how, by giving me gut wrenching stomach cramps. And I didn't help myself out one bit with my choice of food for this morning. As you guys well know, many of us are living off ramen. And my stomach does not like ramen. But what choice do you have? Even ramen is becoming a thing that the proletariat can't afford as the packets are getting more and more expensive. That's all I got. Sorry I went super long today. There was a lot for me to say. Hopefully, in 2 weeks, when you guys are listening to this, things would have gotten a lot better.